All right, guys, I've never smelled this many animalic fragrances on camera before. I've got 50 animalic fragrances here today that I'm going to let you know what I think about them on camera. This is another deep dive video. And if you're new to the world of animalic fragrances, this is definitely the one you're going to want to watch to find out what I think about the fragrances. As I said, I've got 50 animalic fragrances here, maybe just a few more than 50, but it's around 50. And first time I'm doing 50 animalic fragrances in one video. Some of the fragrances are not as animalic as others, so it depends on how much they use the notes, the animalic notes in the fragrances. But I consider all of these fragrances to be animalic. And animalic generally means civet, musk, castoreum, ambergris, hyrax, or hyraceum, sometimes leather, cumin. You know, all of these things come to mind with animalic fragrances. And I should be honest, some of the fragrances I'm not too familiar with. I don't know much about them, if at all. And some of the fragrances I really love and wear and have spoken about on the channel many times. Before I get started with the list, do let me know what your favorite animalic fragrances are. Add a comment below. Now let's get started with the list. Going to the house of Amouage, I've got two Amouage fragrances here. We're starting off with Gold Man. Gold Man was a more recent discovery for me within the last 3-4 years. And I can't get enough of this fragrance. I absolutely really love it. That's the other thing I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you if I really love this animalic fragrance or hate or don't enjoy the animalic fragrance. But here with Gold Man, I'm absolutely head over heels for it. It did launch in the 80s, and it does smell like an 80s fragrance for sure. Powerhouse, musky, civet forward, green floral. And it's kind of in line with some of the gender-bending fragrances that Amouage has launched. But again, this is an 80s launch. I think this is the very first fragrance that Amouage launched. And I only discovered it like 3 or so years ago, maybe 4 years. But man, it's so good. So good. I feel like the civety, musky notes that are in here are smoothed over by all the greenness. Super awesome scent. Really love it. If you like 80s fragrances that are musky, civet forward, that leans, green, floral, definitely check out Gold Man. The gold is written right there. I should also be upfront. Still dealing with congestion and coughs, so I might be pausing the video, but there won't be any breaks within the video, so just to cough and to get cleared up a little bit. So we're going to another Amouage fragrance, Silver Oud. Now, unlike Gold Man, which I absolutely love, Silver Oud, on the other hand, is super challenging for me, extremely challenging, and not a fragrance I love to wear. It's dark and smoky, very oudy. It's very animalic oudy, but also there are animalic musky notes in here as well, I believe. I think there might be castoreum because it's kind of leathery, but it's super charred, very smoky. I don't hate it, but it's not a fragrance that I gravitate towards. It's not a fragrance that I want to wear. It's pretty base heavy also, because sometimes animalic fragrances or animalic notes in general are all in the base because they're really heavy base specific notes. This is super base heavy. In fact, I don't smell much freshness, and generally the fresh notes are up top, like citruses get the top notes, floral notes are in the heart generally. This to me is like a base heavy fragrance, super intense. It's amber, resinous, oudy, animalic, leathery, smoky. Let me know if you're a fan of Silver Oud. Let me know if you prefer Gold Man. For me, it's Gold Man. Maybe for you, it's Silver Oud. What do you guys think? I don't remember the name of the perfumer for the Gold Man, but Silver Oud is Cecile Zerokium, by the way. Let's move on to two fragrances from the house of Angelos Creations Olfactives. We've got PNOI for the first one. PNOI. So this is a very green, leathery animalic fragrance. Super spicy, very vintage-esque. Also very indie, artisanal. It's a very long-lasting fragrance. Comes off green and leathery, almost like a green sheeper leather. But when you really dig into the fragrance and wear it and study it, it's super complex, really, really deep, rich. I almost feel like there's a bit of narcissus. There's a little bit of hay. There's some spices. It comes off a bit green. It's very woody, very spicy. I'm also getting a little bit of chamomile. I'm not sure if that's in the notes. But once again, it's very complex. Like, you can really experience the depth in this fragrance. It does smell a little bit like spring, but in a much deeper way. I think it's the greenness that I'm getting from this. I think there's also notes like, I think there's civet in this, could be castoreum, but I wouldn't say it's as intense with the animalic notes like Silver Oud is, but this actually develops. It's a journey. You're not picking up the animalic. So although I think the smell right off the bat is a bit on the daring side, personally, especially if you're not familiar with indie artisanal fragrances. And also for me, I don't know why, I'm somewhat challenged by hay. I don't know why. It's pleasant here, but sometimes it comes off animalic to me. I don't know why. Anyway, that is PNOI from Angelos Creations Olfactives. And then we've got Vetiveria Animalis. This is in the previous bottle. The labels used to be, on front there. But now the name of the brand is up here, and the fragrance name is written on the bottom. Vetiveria Animalis is exactly that. It's vetiver animalic. Yeah, this one actually, you can actually really smell the animalic touches right up front. This to me is also super vintage, really vintage. It's deep, rooty, intense vetiver that I think it pays tribute to Jedi from Guerlain. And once again, it's actually really, really complex. Very deep, intense, and super long-lasting vintage style creation. If I had to pick, I prefer this one over PNOI, but this one does have more animalics right up front, whereas to me, I feel like PNOI had the hay, which didn't come off too animalic, but I think depending on the weather and things like that also, animalic notes shine a lot louder when it's warmer. Like, I wouldn't wear Silver Oud whatsoever when it's really hot outside. But I quite like this one. It's very vintage for sure. Like, it comes off like it's a classic offering. Vetiveria Animalis, appropriately named, I think. Like, if you're familiar with vetiver fragrances, like, Guerlain's vetiver, and even though Guerlain Jedi, is a Guerlain fragrance, nothing like Guerlain's vetiver. Even the new one, Vetiver Fauve, if you're familiar with things like Lalique Encre Noire, maybe if you can separate all the notes that are in here, and you can separate just the vetiver, because for me, Encre Noire is super minimalistic. It's not like super complex. This is like very, very complex, like lots going on here. It's a journey for sure. This also gets a little bit leathery to me, this Vetiveria Animalis. There you go. Let me know if you're familiar with that house. Next, we're going to the house of Artiste. It's Venice Rococo. Let me know if you're familiar with this one. Now, the brand has a fragrance, I forget the name of it. Is it Ella? Is that the name? L, I think it was L, right? It has a fragrance that kind of reminds me of Kouros that I haven't been able to get yet. And I don't even know if the brand makes it. It's actually quite good. Really, really great. Totally inspired by the animalic qualities of Kouros. But I don't have that one, unfortunately. So we're going to talk about Venice Rococo. This is actually super festive. It's operatic, very powdery, a little bit makeup-y, but there's definitely dirtiness underneath all that bright, beautiful, makeup-y kind of powdery effects that's happening. It's very floral, and I think it's a little bit fruity, but on skin, it develops to like a raw animalic amber. I wouldn't say this is super duper daring, and the animalic qualities are not super strong, but I think there are animalic touches that needs to be highlighted here in today's video, so I'm speaking about it. But let me know your thoughts. I would also say it's very vintage, but no. Well, kind of. Now, when I compare Venice Rococo with the fragrances of Angelos Creations Olfactives, it's very modern, even though it's hinting at the vintages or classics. But the Angelos Creations Olfactives fragrances are super duper vintage, classic. Whereas, to me, it doesn't come off modern, the Angelos Creations 2 fragrances I just spoke about. This one does come off modern with those classic hints and touches. Does that make sense to you guys? That is Venice Rococo from the house of Artiste. Next, going to the house of Borntostandout. I've got 3 Borntostandout animalic fragrances here. First of which is Filthy Musk. Now this one I've spoken quite a bit about. I really, really love this one. I love how sweet it is, and I love how animalic it is. So the 2 combos together, amazing. I really love it. It's also really long lasting. It's super sexy. It's fruity, a bit boozy, but it's got, civet kind of touches in there. Musk for sure. And it smells delicious. Really, really wonderful. It shines also. Now this one, actually, be warned, I think the sticky sweetness that it has might be a bit too much for warm days. Although, as I was saying, I think animalic fragrances are a bit too much to wear when it's really hot. But I can tolerate it. Some of you might not be able to. So use with caution. But you can also, just do a couple of, like maybe 1 or 2 spritz, because a lot of these fragrances I'm talking about today are really long lasting. So you're also not going to need a lot. But this Filthy Musk is amazing. Really, really awesome. We actually featured it as part of a trio of Asian brands in a Scent Club kit. And we have just a few more of the kit number 15 that features Filthy Musk. So get your kit if you're curious to find out about this. We also have in that kit One Day's Taipei, which is a savory gourmand. So completely umami, salty, not sweet at all. And we also have Prode's blue whiskey on the rock in an old-fashioned glass, so boozy fragrance. But this Filthy Musk, man, it is so good. Really great work. Awesome stuff. One of my favorites. Totally wearable. But let's go to another Borntostandout. It's L'Animal. Let me know if you're familiar with L'Animal. I have a video on the channel with June of Borntostandout, and he's speaking about the launch of these 3 fragrances. This to me is much darker and not as sweet as Filthy Musk. Smokier, a bit more resinous. And it's called L'Animal. It's the animal, basically. So it's quite ferocious. I think for me, between Filthy Musk and L'Animal, I think Filthy Musk is much more potent. Like, it's really long lasting. Also, the sticky, syrupy, ambery fragrances like Filthy Musk do last longer on me compared to something a bit more dry like this. This is definitely a lot more woody, maybe a bit leathery, but also quite animalic. And maybe I should also say there's a bit of smokiness in here as well. I prefer, between the two, I prefer Filthy Musk. I just fell for it. Really love the DNA of the perfumer. It's definitely one of my favorites. So, but I think L'Animal is a different kind of beast, I should say. And then the last one from Borntostandout is called Naked Laundry. And this is an aldehydic fragrance that, well, June mentioned in the video. It's as if you're just checked into a new hotel. It's a clean bed. And it's as if you've gone in bed and you're doing your thing with your significant other and going from clean sheets to, dirty sheets, basically. So it's quite aldehydic, which comes off clean. Aldehydes do. You've got that here. But this develops into musk and some dirtiness, animalic notes. I believe there's a scatol, from what I remember June mentioned, or it could be like a civet. And they don't use real animalic notes in these fragrances, by the way. At least the ones I have here should be synthetic, not the real thing. Because back in the old days, they were using real civet, real deer musk. With the hyraceum, it's actually a dropping of the animal. It's not the animal itself. And ambergris is the regurgitation. It's pooped out rather than vomited, by the way, with the ambergris. But it's kind of like in between the vomit and the poop for ambergris, but it's not vomited. It is pooped out. Anyway, I think the Naked Laundry, because it has a lot of aldehydes, it doesn't come off as animalic on the strip. On skin, it does get more darker and more animalic. But aldehydes, this is Naked Laundry I'm talking about. But aldehydes, to me, always have a clean, soapy smell. There was a trend of aldehydic fragrances. A lot came out. I think it's kind of, quieted down a little bit. But most importantly, the fragrance Acne Studio, I think, from Frederick Malle with the aldehydic touches. And there might have been a few other aldehydic fragrances that I'm forgetting, but I think it's quieted down. But those are the 3 Borntostandout fragrances. Let's now move on to the House of Chanel with Antaeus. Yeah, we're doing a classic here. Also, most of these fragrances should be smelling. So if anything is not, I apologize, but I wanted to make sure all of the fragrances that I spoke about today are on the market, which is what I usually do if I'm talking about a genre or a style of perfume. If it's talking about an actual perfumer or an actual brand, I do highlight everything that they have launched or created. But when I do notes or genres of fragrances, I generally try and leave those off because most people don't want to fall in love with the idea of a fragrance, then turns out to be that they're no longer selling. But Antaeus goes back to the early 80s. I think it was 81 when it came out. It's a leather. I do have to be honest, I don't think it smells as great as it used to. It's those, 80s leathery powerhouse fragrances. I think because I think they used to use castoreum, and it was a lot smoother. Castoreum is the beaver. It was a lot smoother. Now it just seems like it's broken apart. It's not smooth, Like I could smell the leather that's not super refined and smooth. It's just like pieces of leather that I'm smelling that are not blended perfectly. But I mean, the idea is there, I think, with the Antaeus. I mean, this is the kind of fragrances that guys were wearing in the early 80s, Sorry. With the powerhouse fragrances. And I mean, I guess there was a demand for these kind of fragrances. For some strange reason, I think maybe the general public has gotten too sensitive to animalic notes. Plus, it's become inhumane to kill the animals to do these kind of fragrances. But I think it was just the trend thing, you know, like the 80s powerhouse fragrances brought on the aquatic movement, and then, you know, eventually it became marine. So it's just the evolution of tastes and what people like. And I think nowadays, with my own experience from reading comments, most people don't like this kind of stuff. I mean, sure, there will be the people that are used to it, but I would say 9 out of 10 times the comments are negative. Unless you're a collector and you embrace the classics, which I do myself. But being upfront about this, it doesn't smell as good as it used to, you know. So, but it is definitely animalic, even to this day, so definitely needs to be highlighted. So that's Chanel Antaeus. Well, that does happen sometimes. So sometimes these bottles, yeah, I gotta figure out another situation with my table, but this particular cap is a bit loose. But anyway, the next fragrance I'm talking about is from a house called Charlie, and it's called By Matthew Zink. So I bought this from their website. I had heard about it. It's very sweaty and smoky and animalic in that way. So I don't think they're using animalic notes. It's kind of spicy, leathery, and very sweaty. Like it's body sweat that you're smelling here. Ooh, yeah. It's like not warm spices. You're not smelling cinnamon. You're not smelling cloves. It's not those warm spices. This is a bit more fresh and on the pungent variety, like cumin to the max, like super duper cumin here. And a lot of people associate that with body odor. Generally, this doesn't, but it creates that feel. It creates that experience. But there's other spices mixed in that are, you know, kind of like assisting the cumin, but the cumin is shining. Eventually, this is developing into incense and smoke, a bit church-like. Lots of woods, gets fiery hot, but not warm, spicy, more like fiery woods, burning woods, charred woods, eventually developing into something a bit more ambery. Maybe a little bit leathery, but not quite. It's more about when you put this on, it's very sweaty. Like it accentuates real sweat. So if you're sweating and you're wearing this, it's pretty dangerous. Don't do it. But I like the way the fragrance is created. I think it reminds me of fragrances like Hermès's Eau de Hermès, which to me is quite animalic on skin. It's quite sweaty animalic. It's almost like sweat plus... I didn't feature that fragrance here. I don't know the status of it. I think it's on its way out, sadly, but it's the original first creation from Hermès, so maybe not, but it's not that easy to get. Or I should also say L'Autre from Diptyque is kind of like that, but that fragrance doesn't get into the church territory that By Matthew Zink does. So it's different. I think maybe they're kind of inspired, but this does get quite sweatier, like really super duper sweaty. So that's By Matthew Zink from the house of Charlie. Yeah, this cap is very loose, so I almost dropped it again. All right, next up, we've got 3 fragrances from the house of Etat Libre Orange. 2 of them are, one's a flanker of one, and then there's another fragrance. So we're going to talk about Rien first. Rien, I fell in love with the flanker of it before I actually got the original. But we're going to talk about the original first. So to me, Rien is kind of like a reimagining of Kouros, which I have here. It literally smells like Kouros to me. Well, no, I shouldn't say literally. I shouldn't say that. It reminds me of it. So first of all, it's aldehydic, and Kouros is aldehydic. Then it's quite musky, almost like civet, and Kouros has all that. But they've also added incensey touches here, and they've amplified it in the intense incense version. So the original is not as dense and resinous. It's a bit more airy, but still quite animalic. And I think it's, in line with how Kouros is. But as I said, the flanker intense incense, Rian intense incense, is how I discovered this fragrance and instantly fell in love with it. And it totally reminded me of the classics I was familiar from the early 80s, like Kouros. There's other fragrances, like there's a Jacques Bogart fragrance that it reminds me of. There were a lot of fragrances like this. A lot of people have mentioned for Kouros, what do you call that stuff that you put in the toilet? Anyway, don't want to get too gross out. But, and I picked that up here as well. But I don't know, kind of sort of a reminder, but I don't think it's identical. Probably quite daring for the house of Etat Libre Orange now, but I think it's one of the early fragrances from the house. It launched in 2006, I think. And then we're going to talk about intense incense. So just a follow-up, a flanker to the original. It's also a powerhouse, as in literally it's long-lasting here with the intense version. It's much darker, leatherier, amber resins comes to mind. It doesn't have the brightness of the original, and I'm not saying the original is like super duper bright. It's quite animalic. And I think also maybe the aldehydes have been toned down in Rian Intense Incense in comparison to the original Rian. Because when I smelled the original Rian, I did get a lot more the aldehydic touches, and that aldehydic touches gives that lift. The brightness gives it a lift, because when you're working with dark notes, they're usually base notes that become base heavy, and I think the aldehydes, for me, what it does is lifts it up, so it's not all like base heavy. But as I said, in the version Rian Intense Incense, it's a lot more dark, a lot more resinous, and super potent. Which version do you guys like? Let me know. I think definitely, I should say, for me, it's one of the best from the house, but it's super daring. Like, the brand has a lot more mass appealing fragrances. But it's definitely one of my favorites from the house for sure. I absolutely love it. And the second fragrance from this house, which is actually the third because we did two from the same fragrance, is Secretions Magnifique. Now, I usually don't like to spray this fragrance in this studio. I'm going to do it today. And I've only done it one other time on camera. I don't know how, it's animalic. But this is one of the most vile fragrances. I've never felt so grossed out smelling a fragrance. I mean, it doesn't compare with Silver Oud in the grossness factor. It's vile. Literally makes me puke, makes me want to puke. I'm only going to spray it one time. Oh, no. Oh, bloody, metallic, powdery. Oh. I'm not even going to put my nose to it because I can smell it a mile away. It is vile. Literally gross. I need to pause. Okay, yeah, again, for me, Secretions Magnifique is one of the grossest fragrances. And it's not your typical animalic fragrance. It's just a perfume inspired by bodily fluids. That's what it is. Who's a fan? It's good to have here because in a recent sniff session I had in the studio, the clients wanted to smell it. And I'm like, we're going to have to spray that outside. And I probably should not have smelled it here. Thankfully, I threw away the strip really quickly. I could still smell it here. It's in this little section. But as soon as I smell something different, it's going to change. But again, for me, it's one of the most vile. And the thing is with this fragrance, I've had this bottle for about 2 years. It's today, for the first time, it smelled the worst. Like, I've smelled that fragrance and it hasn't smelled that bad. Today, it's the worst. I don't know if it's because of what I smelled last, and maybe it's because it's the complete opposite of Rien Intense Incense. But going from Rien Intense Incense to Secretions Magnifique was awful. Awful, awful, awful. Now, I hear from some people that they love this fragrance. I don't understand you. I'm sorry, but noses are so different. I mean, we experience fragrances differently. I think we smell very similarly, but we experience them differently. I don't think we smell differently. I think it's the experience and its sensitivities. Now, for me, I'm very sensitive to metallic notes, metallic fragrances, and Secretions Magnifique is very metallic because of the blood. I mean, it's supposed to be like blood. So blood is very metallic, and that comes off super duper bloody. And yeah, it's bloody. And then there's the idea of semen, sweat, spit. It's all of this all captured into one fragrance. So let me know when you guys smell it. Do come back here and add a comment to this video and let me know what you got. And again, maybe try Rien Intense Incense first, and then go to Secretions Magnifique. Oh, that was the most vile that I've ever experienced, that fragrance. It's literally like nauseating. So let's move on to a fragrance called Cacao Ritual from a brand called Extra Virgo. So this is an Animalic chocolate fragrance. Oh, wow. I think it's castoreum. It's super smoky and leathery. Just imagine castoreum from Antaeus with a lot of chocolate. How does that sound? Because you're smelling this and you've got this super delicious chocolate, almost like a really decadent brownie. And then you've got this very animalic, smoky leather thing happening on the other side. Oof, that is definitely intense. Ooh, wild. How do you like your castoreum? Or I should say, do you like your chocolate with castoreum? Or do you like your brownies with castoreum? That's exactly what you get here. Really literal. Oh, whoa. I think I showed you the wrong side. Here it is. This is where it says Cacao Ritual. Honestly, the chocolate in this is so decadent, like super rich. It's making me want to smell it more and more because it smells so delicious. But on the other side, there's an animal literally revealing itself very ferociously. Anyway, Cacao Ritual by Extra Virgo. Let me know if you guys know that brand. All right, next up, we're going to the house of Francesca Bianchi with four animalic fragrances from Francesca Bianchi. Now, recently I did a deep dive video on Francesca Bianchi fragrances. If you haven't caught that, please search for it. We spoke about these 4 fragrances in that video, and my guest reacted pretty intensely with some of these fragrances. So go catch that video, but finish this video before you catch that video. So this is the essence. So from what I read, this is kind of like a primer, an animalic booster primer. Let's see. So it's very leathery to me. And it's got that kind of buttery orris thing happening. Oh, it's getting darker and smokier. So if you want to add some animalics to your fragrance, now this, I was thinking of what fragrance would I add this to if I didn't want to make it Francesca Bianchi fragrance. The essence, I think, would be perfect for the fragrance Maison Crivelli's Iris Mollicon. Because to me, the Orris Iris in the essence is reminding me of the butteriness of the Iris or Orris in Iris Mollicon. And if you want to give it an animalic boost, spritz this down first, let it dry, and then spritz on top the Iris Mollicon. And so you have like a smoky, animalic, leathery take on that fragrance. I'm trying to think of another Iris fragrance. But to me, I think for me, one of the butteriest Iris fragrances is Iris Mollicon. But that's what this is to me. Kind of comes off a little bit simplistic, but that's usually what boosters and primers are. They're a bit more simplistic, but it is pretty animalic, I should say. It's not like Cacao Ritual where, I mean, it's... So for me, what I get from Cacao Ritual, the animalic notes are so strong and they put a lot of chocolate or cacao in there to balance it out. If they didn't have that much cacao or chocolate in there, the animalics would have been even stronger. And to me, they're really strong, but it's nicely balanced out with the, excuse me, with the chocolate or cacao. Here, it's animalic for sure, but it's not as dense and heavy with the animalic notes as the Cacao Ritual is. This is tolerable. It might be a little bit airy the way I'm experiencing it, but in the end, it's quite animalic and, you know, leathery. That's the essence. I love that label, by the way. You got that kind of leathery, like almost like red alligator skin or something. All right, next we've got, I hope I did these in alphabetical order, the Lover's Tale. So these little, tiny little bottles from Francesca Bianchi pack a big punch, a lot of punch. So a little goes a long way with these, by the way. You don't have to overdo with the sprays. I think I might have a video on about the Lover's Tale on the channel. So this is, I mean, personally, for me, Francesca Bianchi fragrances, there is a trademark DNA running across all of the fragrances. Although some of the latter ones, like the Fougère, the Mango Fougère one, and a few other ones, I think don't have it, but most of them do. Here you've got it. It's super dense, very leathery, but also very dirty and unwashed smelling. The word filthy comes to mind with this. This smells like a couple after they had sex. But leathery, spicy, musky, and that's trademark Francesca Bianchi DNA. You've got that Orris overdose. It's powdery, a little bit makeup-y, but more animalic makeup. Under My Skin. Are you a fan of this one? Wait, I'm sorry. It's not Under My Skin. It's The Lover's Tale. Not my favorite from the house, honestly. I actually prefer the essence more than Lover's Tale, but we've got Under My Skin next. Here we have a bit more, I think, leather. It's also a little bit more sour, but still containing the trademark Francesca Bianchi Orris Iris leather DNA. And I mean, because of this DNA, the fragrances are very cohesive and connected to me. Then easily you can say that this is definitely Francesca Bianchi. With the Under My Skin, I'm getting a little bit of floral touches as well. It's acting a bit floral. So there's a freshness, but It's also a bit, it's almost like, it's a little bit dirtier, but it's cleaned up with something floral, if that makes sense. Like, it's, something has been, like when you spill and you wipe it down to clean it up on a counter or something, kind of getting that kind of an effect is what they've done, or she's done, with wiping down the dirtiness a little bit with something floral. I kind of like this under my skin a bit more than the Lover's Tale, but still not one of my all-time favorites. But I do pick up the DNA plus something floral under my skin. Last, from Francesca Bianchi, we've got Unspoken Musk. And it's interesting, I mentioned in another video, it might have been the Francesca Bianchi deep dive video, I said, this has gotten more animalic for me. And that has happened with several other fragrances. I was so obsessed with this one when it first came out. But, you know, I got tired of it. I put it away. I came back to it recently before I shot that video, the deep dive. Or even before that, I believe I had pulled it out. And it was like, wow, this has gotten so animalic. So, I don't know, my palette changes, my chemistry changes. Oh, like I'm, wow, it is pretty dirty. Wow. What happened to my nose? Has that happened to you guys? Like, I used to love this. It's way too animalic. This is a little bit sweeter. And of course, it still has that DNA, the Orris Iris leathery DNA. Are you a fan? Do you think it's too animalic? Do let me know, add a comment below, but that has gotten way animalic, so super animalic. Although the worst thing I've smelled so far is Secretions Magnifique, which will always be probably one of the worst fragrances that I've put my nose on. I just don't think there's any redeeming qualities about that fragrance. It's just vile. I mean, at least what has happened with Unspoken Musk now, it is much more enjoyable. It's acting more like a musk with the Francesca Bianchi DNA. But when you first sprayed it, it is quite animalic. Anyway, that is the last Francesca Bianchi fragrance, Unspoken Musk. Let me know your thoughts on that. Now let's go to something that I hated first and I've gotten to really enjoy it. And I am using this fragrance very sparingly because it's freaking expensive. When I bought it, it was around $1,300 and it has gone up to like $2,000 now. This is The Night from Frederic Malle. All natural oud, created by Dominique Ropillon. It's really good. It's interesting also, as this fragrance ages, because I've had that since around 2018 or 19, early 2019 or late 2018 is when I got it. It has become a bit boozy, and the rose has also amplified. I mean, for me, the rose is very, very minute, but it's kind of gotten boozy and it's reminding me of the booze in Promise. It's not Promise I'm smelling. Don't think I am. It's The Night. Because in the Desert Gems collection, we've got, it started by The Night, then it was Promise, then it was Dawn, then it was The Moon, then it was Hope. And for me, Hope is the reverse of Promise into more of an oudy direction, whereas Promise doesn't really have oud, but it has Cypriol, Nagarmotha. So, but it's the Desert Gems collection. And for me, when I first smelled it, I remember the first time I smelled The Night at Barney's here, when Barney's was still a store, department store. I was like, whoa, that is way too animalic for me. but I think it's one of the finest examples of all-natural Middle Eastern style oud. It's really good. A little goes a long way. The thing is, I think also they sell a hair perfume of this much cheaper if you don't want to pay for this. I think they still have the hair perfume. I know they did at one time. And I mean, it's so long lasting and it's oud, it lingers. You can just use the hair perfume. But anyway, I think the real thing is really great. The other thing is, I feel like it's stripped away. I mean, it's kind of similar to Portrait of a Lady because it is the same perfumer, but it's a stripped down version of Portrait of a Lady with the boost of the all natural oud they have in there. Great scent. One of the best. That is the night. All right. So next we're going to talk about Hunk Boxer 006. So for me, Hunk is male archetypes. This is the boxer. They have the mechanic, which I really enjoy mechanic. Barman is also great boozy, and a few others. This boxer is quite bloody, like Secretions Magnifique, but also leathery, like the leather gloves the boxers box in. Let me show you how this sprays. I don't know if it'll show. I don't know if you could see the, let's see if you can see that. It sprays with like a line and it goes out in a very interesting way. All of the fragrances of Hunk do that. But this is, I wouldn't say this is the most super duper animalic fragrance, but it's daring. It's not easy to wear. It's quite leathery. It's bloody metallic. It's a bit greasy, smoky. There's a bit of a bandagey experience in there. The idea of bandage, where you have to bandage something, a scar or bloody tear or something. So that's what makes this one quite daring for me. Anyway, but it's not at all close to how bad Secretions Magnifique is. For me, I really enjoy Mechanic from this line, as I was saying. Boxer is challenging. There I go again. It's so crowded on the table. I have to make these tables less crowded or get a bigger table. Up next, going to the house of imaginary authors, it's Bull's Blood. And this is the second edition of Bull's Blood. I think it is toned down a bit. It's still pretty animalic. The original version, which I have a little bit of, featured costus root. And for me, costus root is one of the most vile notes in fragrances. I think it's a plant. And Bull's Blood was super, like the original was super duper animalic. And with that costus root, it just overdosed the animalic qualities. I think this version is not quite animalic, but I think it still is. It's not metallic like Secretions Magnifique or Hunk's Boxer, because those two have the bloody note. And this is, in the end, called Bull's Blood. But this does feature geranium, rose, patchouli, black musk, tobacco, sandalwood, and bull's blood. Yeah, it gets animalic on skin. It gets musky, but it is refined. Like, it's smoothed out, so it's not as daring and crazy like the original. Plus, I like the new look. Great inspiration for a fragrance, I think, Bull's Blood. All right, next we're going to the house of Jean Desprez. It's Bala Versailles. Bala Versailles. Apparently Michael Jackson used to wear this fragrance. How true is that? Does anybody know for sure? 100% for sure. Honestly, guys, I had heard so much about how daring this fragrance is, probably when I first got on the scene around 2012. So maybe it got reformulated after that. But some people tell me this was like one of the worst. I don't think it's as bad now. It's mostly like an amber, spicy, warm amber. So it's been neutered, but I'm featuring it here just to give you guys an idea. And if you're looking for a modern animalic version of that, which we'll come to, it's Salome by Papillon Perfumery. But this version, I think it's, like I said, it's just neutered. It's an amber, classic style amber. I think it came out in the 60s. Ball of Versailles. So you're dancing at the ball in Versailles, you're sweating, and it's an amber. So you're wearing this perfume or some perfume, and your body sweat funk is mixing with your perfume, and that's what the inspiration is here. So I smelled the Parfum edition of this, and I think it was also a vintage at the Fragrance Vault in Lake Tahoe way back in 21 when she was in her previous space. What a large space it was. And I was like, damn, that's good. I don't know why I didn't buy it at that time. I should have, but I didn't. But I think it's because I think Salome is like a great alternative for it. But it was a parfum, and Salome is not. It's an eau de parfum. So the parfum was super smooth. It was a bit more daring. This just, like I said, it's been neutered. It's not like what it used to be. Maybe there's some traces of some funk in there, but I think it's very, very wearable. I was also going to put Taboo on here by Dana, the current version that I think is super awesome for like 15 bucks, 60 ml bottle for 15 bucks. Not animalic to me whatsoever. But then again, people experience fragrances differently. Apparently the older version of Taboo is quite animalic, which is what I've read. Anyway, let's move on to the House of Jeroboam. It's Ligno. Ligno, to me, imagine Balenciaga Pour Homme and a much more animalic version of it. Balenciaga Pour Homme, to me, is patchouli. This acts like it, but imagine intensified with castoreum, because this has castoreum. I mean, when I'm smelling it now, it reminds me of Givenchy Gentleman, the 70s edition. Maybe a little bit of Zino Davidoff from the mid-80s. And then, of course, you've got Balenciaga Pour Homme from the early 90s. But a much more daring version, like super animalic. The patchouli is cakey, a bit chocolatey, but ambery and, musky. I think the castoreum also creates a little bit of leather here. It's a daring one. I have a video on the channel you guys can go catch. Ligno from Jeroboam. Now, the next one I think might be discontinued, but I'm featuring it here. It's called Peau de Bête from Liquid Imaginaire. I was in Paris in January of 2024, and I visited Javoy, and Javoy was still selling this. And I think it might be a bit difficult to get, so I think this is the only one that might not be easy to find. But if you are into animalics, I would highly recommend it. I think it's called Skin of the Beast, Peau de Bête. Yeah, it's quite beastly. It's quite musky, quite animalic, very daring, but also a little bit calming. There's something sweet in there. I love that. I mean, it was like, I had never sampled it, and for some strange reason, I decided to go through the whole store and came on to Liquid Imaginaire, and I said, I never tried Peau de Bête. I smelled it, and I said, how many bottles do you have? Oh, it's discontinued. We have 3 more left or something. I think, I'm going to take one. It's good. It's very leathery, too. But I like that name, Peau de Bête. Co is skin, I believe, and Bet is beast. All right, next up, probably one of my most loved Animalic fragrances. Maison Francis Kurkdjian's Absolute Pour le Soir, the new version. The old version is stored away, high to the top of the shelves across from me. This is the new version, and honestly, it's getting better as it ages, guys. So if you can buy yourself a bottle, put it away, store it away, I don't know. It's starting to remind me of the original so much. Oh, so the very first time I smelled this was at Neiman Marcus in the original edition. And I went in to buy, what is the fragrance from Maison Francis Kurkdjian that was the patchouli and rose for the guys? I for some reason can't remember the name. I have a bottle, I've stored it away. I hope they bring that one back too, because they just brought back Velvet Mood, Oud Velvet Mood. So the associate there gave me a large decant of this, kind of like a 30 ml bottle of it, like filled it into a bottle. And I had that, and I wore it like sparingly because it was quite animalic for me for a while. Then around that time, I also bought Mitza, and it reminded me of Mitza a little bit. But sadly, in 2020, it got discontinued. And now it's back. It came back as an exclusive to Selfridges. Now online, you could buy this. It is fantastic. It's super honeyed amber, and there's musky touches in there. So it's very resinous. It's sweet, syrupy, sticky, powdery, and musky. It is just good. Really great. It's aging to be really, really awesome. Almost like very close to the original. I also have a bottle, a full 200 ml bottle of cologne, the Cologne Pour le Soir, because originally this was launched as an eau de parfum in a bottle like this, and a 200 ml bottle, a large bottle of Cologne Pour le Soir, which was a lighter version of that. I haven't worn much of the cologne. I'm keeping it because it's not my favorite, but this, hands down, one of my all-time favorite Animalic fragrances. It's super sexy. Really, really awesome. It's so good. Let me know if you guys are a fan. Did you get yourself a new bottle when it was re-released? I was so saddened when it got discontinued, but I'm glad it's back. Obviously, they pull fragrances and then they reformulate them. It never comes back identical. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe the stock is not as new when you first discover a fragrance and you think it's a masterpiece. Then that first initial smell has always stayed with you. And then when they bring it back, it's the new production, not specifically, matured and macerated yet. And so it smells different, kind of a thing. Maybe that's the case. But as I was saying, this Absolute Pour le Soir is aging to smell so, so awesome. Very, very close to the original. All right, let's move on to the House of Malbram. This is Shameless Seducer. What's going on with this brand? This is super powdery and musky and animalic. It's on skin, it gets quite daring. I wouldn't say it's one of the strongest in the animalic department, but it can come off a bit vile on skin. But right now, it's acting very musky and not necessarily very animalic musk. Also, it's kind of like a clean, powdery musk. But on the skin, it changes. Let me know if you're familiar with this one. I don't have too much experience with it. That is Shameless Seducer from the House of Malbram. All right, next up, we're going to the House of Naomi Goodsir. We've got Corpus Equus. So this is a Bertrand Duchaufour creation. It's about horses, and I have another one coming up from Sarah Baker called Riders, which I'll get to as well. They're not my most favorite fragrances when it comes to animalics. This one's pretty challenging to me. It's quite leathery. It doesn't have much sweetness. There is a syrupy, ambery quality under there. But it's leather. It's powdery. Dry and dusty. And animalic. But I wouldn't say this is like smelling like a fecal oud or overdosed indolic jasmine or something, which is something I don't have too much of here. I didn't really feature a lot of jasmine forward fragrances, but this to me, not one of my all-time favorite fragrances from Naomi Good Sir. It's got a dirtiness, but it's not dirty a lot in the animalic form. It's just like a dirty leather. It is getting quite leathery, but that's what it is. It's a leather. It's an animalic leather. That is Corpus Equus. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Now, we've got Sadonaso next. It's interesting, the reactions I get with this fragrance. Some people say it's the most vile fragrance they've smelled. Some people say it's not animalic at all. See how subjective fragrances are. See how differently people experience fragrances. And I generally don't like to talk about longevity. I mean, if I talk about longevity when I know it's super intense. But, I mean, I've mentioned fragrances are not long-lasting, and people correct me and say, oh, that is the longest-lasting fragrance I have. And then I say, this is the longest lasting fragrance I've ever smelled or experienced. And somebody says, that thing doesn't last on me. So there's all kinds of things like that with people. Everybody experiences fragrances differently. But this is super sexy, I think. Really, really sexy. It's almost like a more refined version of Filthy Musk. Not as sweet, syrupy, sticky like Filthy Musk. So more refined. It is sweet. It is ambery. And quite musky. It's really good. It's really great. Really, really awesome. I find this to be amazingly sexy. So I was going to put Musk Ravageur on this list. It's no longer animalic for me. I don't experience much. I think it's gone most gourmand. And this has touches of what Musk Ravageur used to be like. But to me, I feel like Musk Ravageur is somewhere in the middle of Sadonaso and Filthy Musk, but with all of, just for the sweetness, but with all of its animalic muskiness removed. If you like the idea of some animalics and you are a fan of Musk Ravageur, I'd say start with Sadonaso. But if you want to go with louder, go with Filthy Musk. It says Eau de Parfum right here, and Nasomatto fragrances are extrait de parfum, but this acts much stronger to me than Sadonaso does. The Filthy Musk is much stronger. And if you watch my video with June of Borntostandout talking about Filthy Musk, he does say that he makes the concentrations much stronger than what they say the fragrances are. And I agree, because we have an extrait de parfum here of Sadonaso and an eau de parfum of Filthy Musk. And for me, Filthy Musk is super, super intense. But both of them are awesome. I really love both of them. And they smell great on me. And I find them both super, super sexy. All right, next going to the house of a fragrance I did not... Whoa, I didn't pull out several fragrances here. I guess I'm going to have to pause. All right, so we've got a fragrance from the house of Nishane next. It's Souls on Fire. Let me know if you guys are familiar with this house. I have a video on the channel of the 3 fragrances of this house. Check out the video if you want to learn more. Another indie house. I like this fragrance a lot, actually. It's animalic, but it's totally tolerable with the animalic qualities. I think this is a bit indolic, but it's also a bit musky, like Salome is, and also a little bit like filthy musk. But it's a bit more reserved in comparison to those fragrances because those fragrances are loud. This is a bit more subtle and reserved, but still has those touches and characteristics of Salome and filthy musk. It's also very, very sexy. I love that. It smells great. It's refined, and you know, you've got the animalics are edited perfectly because sometimes people intensify the animalics so much. It's like, why bother wearing this if you're going to smell like shit, right? But this is, you know, dirty. It's a bit sweet and ambery. It's a bit floral. A nice balance. And I'm telling you which ones I like because I can wear them. And, you know, some of them might be really over the top animalic for some of you guys. But I wouldn't wear something like I said, I don't like wearing Silver Oud. It's just too one-sided with the animalics. I like a nice balance. Maybe that's the Libra side of me, which is weird because I don't like, sometimes fragrances can be one-sided, and I like a balance. Maybe that is the Libra side of me. And that's what this is. This Soul's on Fire, perfectly edited, vintage-esque style fragrance. Floral, ambery, indolic, musky. All right, next we go into the house of Nishane. It's Afrika-Olifant. Let me know if you're a fan of this. This to me is also somewhere in line with Rien, Intense Incense, but less aldehydic, more leathery. It definitely has Kouros vibes as well, which I mentioned. I get Kouros from Rien. I think also I mentioned the Jacques Bogart. This does remind me of something that Jacques Bogart would have done as well. I think One Man Show comes to mind from Jacques Bogart. But it's quite leathery. Old school. Really potent, intense. And I think for a specific, you know, consumer, it's not very mass appealing. And a lot of animalic fragrances will not be mass appealing. Sometimes I don't want to wear a lot of these animalic fragrances, but I really love smelling them. And I'll spritz a dab on somewhere and I'll walk around and be challenged with it and see if I really want to get into it. Never with Secretions Magnifique, though, by the way. Never. Ever, ever, ever. But, you know, there are the fragrances that I really love wearing. Like, I really love Filthy Musk. I really love Sadonaso. I really love The Night. And we're going to get to some more here. But before we do, we're talking about Nishane's Shinanay. Let me know if you guys are familiar with that. This, to me, is created by Angelos Creations Olfactives. But to me, it's quite daring. So this is a lot of flowers. It's a floral explosion. Explosive, juicy, but ambery, animalic flowers. I don't know. This one, I mean, I know the guy. I know who he is, the perfumer. I just I have a hard time with it. But this is part of the experimental collection from Nishane. So they do tend to I think they have 2 experimental fragrances now. They're not mass appealing whatsoever. But I mean, what I really get from this fragrance is a lot of jasmine. And it's kind of a dirty variety of jasmine. And I love jasmine. But this fragrance just... I like his other fragrances that I spoke about. Most importantly, Vetiveria Animalis. But then there's also PNOI. Same perfumer. Okay. Next up, one of my favorite Animalic fragrances. Wait, not yet. First, it's Orto Parisi Quoyum. So this is the second brand of Alessandro Gottieri. I should show that. We already spoke about Sadonaso, and this is Quoyum. It's very dark, intense, musky animalic leather. But it's quite keeping the signature characteristic or DNA of the fragrances of Orto Parisi. There's definitely, like I spoke about Risvelium yesterday in the discounted fragrances video. And even though I think the leather is super duper strong in this, way behind the leather, you can kind of pick up the amber woody base notes DNA, which is so prominent in Risvelium and also in Megamare. Like, I don't have a lot of the fragrances from this house. There's a few, but it's here too. But the leather is kind of almost like raw leather and then smoky leather at the same time. Like, it's raw. It's an animal first, right? It's the fur from an animal that is a bit raw, and then what they do to turn it into leather where it gets smoked and all, whatever they do. You've got that here, both of them. But there's a lot of amber woods. But it's not as strong as Risvelium's base notes with the amber woods, because the leather is so strong in this. And very animalic. It's quite animalic here. Let me know if you're a fan of Quoyum. Now we get to one of my all-time favorite animalic fragrances. This is Salome from Papillon Perfumery. And as I was saying earlier, it's a great animalic alternative to Bala Versailles. It's so good. I don't think there's... I'm always forgetting which... And I know that there's Hyraceum in here, but I can't remember if it's civet or castoreum. It's one of those two. It's considered a chypre style. Oh, it's so good. But very animalic. I mean, to my nose, it's super sexy, but I think if you're turned off by animalic fragrances, maybe stay away from this. Because it's not only got those animalic notes, it's also got the sweatiness. Lots of cumin here, lots. So it comes off sweaty, raw, dirty, sex, and vintage at the same time. There's flowers in this as well. I think we've got jasmine in here to give you that kind of dirty indolic touch. But man, it's made masterfully. It's so good. This one actually, when it first launched, I didn't embrace it as fast. But I think what happened was fragrances went so far away from smelling like old school fragrances, and sometimes I was yearning and craving for those kind of fragrances, and so I got closer to it because of that, because this is so vintage, but you know how vintage fragrances get reformulated throughout the years and they don't smell like what they used to 30 years ago. They've stripped away of all of its great qualities and left you this kind of flat kind of thing. But this, to me, oh man, I think that's what happened. First, I was like, okay, I was a fan of their Tobacco Rose and Tobacco Rose and Anubis. Both of those I had. But all of a sudden, I knew about this, and then I just was like totally embraced it because it was just amazing. That's like one of the best fragrances I put my nose on in the animalic world of fragrances. If you are a fan, please, like, if you are a fan of my taste, definitely check it out. But I'm warning you, it's pretty daring, pretty animalic. And then I've got one more fragrance from the house. I don't have the latest offering from this house, but I do have this one. It's called Spell 125. This one I can't agree with, connect with. It's not spelling as well. This is animalic with ambergris, and I'm challenged with ambergris when they overdose it. There was a fragrance, it still exists. It's called Silence the Sea by Strangelove. One of the worst animalic fragrances utilizing ambergris. I couldn't wear it. And one time I accidentally sprayed it on myself. And when you don't like something as far as the fragrance goes, you're really sensitive to it. You just cannot wash it off. Like you wash it and wash it and wash it, you could still smell it. And that's how it was. Like I couldn't get that off of me. It was so strong and so animalic with the ambergris. And this one has ambergris as well. I haven't smelled it in ages. It's not really, well, on skin for sure. It's more animalic. But here on the strip, I think it's a bit forest pine-like and a little spicy, and there is something animalic, but it's kind of light. It's not over the top. But on skin, that ambergris just shines, and it's not my favorite, sadly. For me, the star of the house is Salome. I still need to get my nose on Epona. I think that's the name of the fragrance. But I think I have most of the fragrances. I don't have the first one. I think it's called Angelique. Is that correct? But to me, Salome is a masterpiece. And again, if you've been a fan of Bala Versailles and you're looking for a more daring take on it, you must get your nose on Salome. It is, like I said, it's a masterpiece. I love it. So good. All right, let's move on to Parfum d'Empire, Musc Tonkin. I'm glad to have this. This is quite daring. It's definitely in the DNA of Parfum d'Empire fragrances created by Marc-Antoine Corticchiato. To me, it's a musk, but it's also kind of a chypre with patchouli and rose. That makes it really sexy to me. This is very gothic to me. For some reason, it brings up images of vampires. Like Interview with the Vampire comes to mind. Maybe the latest Nosferatu, but not as like monster like that, but more like vampires. There's something bloody about it, but not like the blood in Secretions Magnifique. And I think it's the rose mixed with the patchouli-like DNA that they have in here is what I'm getting. But behind all of that, there is a dirty musk in there. Oh, it's good. It's really good. Really great. It's actually smelling even better tonight. It is dirty though. Be warned. Let me know if you're a fan. I think they have a fragrance called Tabak Taboo, which I smelled recently. I thought Tabak Taboo might not be animalic, but I got some animalics from it. I'm not sure why. But here we go to the house of Parfums d'Ucita. It's Oud Infini. So recently, Pisara of Parfums d'Ucita came to the studio. She was being a bit shy, but we did shoot a video. We spoke about this in that video. So if you want to find out more, you can go catch that video. I have a challenging time with this. It's too, I mean, I love the night, and it's sort of kind of like the night, but much more animalic. Like, this is literally poopy. It's rosy, but also poopy. If you like that idea, definitely check it out, because there's a lot of stock out there of this, but I also believe it's discontinued. Man, this is like raw, in your face, dirty oud with this very beautiful rose. It's not black oud, it's not gold rose oud, it's not oud silk oud, guys. This is definitely the dirtiest oud with rose. Woo! Let me know if you're a fan of Oud Infini. I have a challenging time with that. Very challenging time. All right, we're going to the house of Pernoire next. This is Masar. I'm not too familiar with this fragrance. I pulled it out because it is on the Animalic side. Let's see what it's all about. There is a really strong amber woods base here. It's opening up to something very Middle Eastern. I'm not picking up much in the way of oud, or maybe there is oud. It's a bit sticky caramelly. According to my research, this is supposed to be Animalic. But where is the animal? It's not popping through. It's more kind of gourmandesque. But, you know, amber woods and sticky kind of caramelly consistency. So it is darkening. I think it's got amber at the top, or very close to the top, or maybe it's pretty dominant that it's reaching the top, because first thing I got was something sticky, and most likely it has something like labdanum or some ambery notes. It's developing and getting muskier as it's drying down. It's not up top, it's not. But it's full of amber woods and eventually getting muskier as it's drying down. But so far it hasn't gotten there. So it's quite enjoyable. I think it might eventually become like a smooth animalic amber wood thing in the base, and which is which direction it's going, but it's not much potent. Anyway, that is Masar from Pernoire. Up next, we've got Rogue Perfumery's Chypre Siam. I do need to buy a few more bottles of this brand's fragrances, because they do have some awesome ones. My favorite is Mousse Illuminée. My second favorite is Chypre Siam. Very vintage-esque fragrance that eventually turns into something musky and civety. But it's quite bright and very, like I said, vintage. Chypre Siam, referring to Thailand. I think there's an ingredient in this that comes from Thailand. I think that's what they're referring to. There's definitely a very citrusy edge up top, but it's developing into kind of a mossy, fuzzy, musky thing in the, as it's developing. It's not super duper loud with the animalics, though, I have to say. It's good, though. Really great. Really great work from Manuel Cross. I think he's definitely an awesome perfumer. So that's Chypre Siam. Up next, we've got Bond-T from Sammarco. They had disappeared for a while. Now it seems like they're back. And this is also... It's interesting. When I first discovered this fragrance, I wasn't picking up much of animalics. All I got was chocolate. And then the animalics just started appearing. And I'm like, whoa, what happened to the gourmand fragrance? It became really, really animalic. I think this is kind of sort of like Extra Virgo. Cacao Ritual. But I think this is just a bit smoother, I think. But still very, very animalic. It seems to be blended a bit more. Like with Cacao Ritual, I can kind of like separate the chocolatey cacao touches with the castoreum. Here it seems to be smoother and much more blended. But very daring. I mean, I think it's very, very animalic. But it's delicious. Whew. It's like a decadent, dirty chocolate, if there is such a thing. Bond-T by Sammarco. Let me know if you're familiar with it. Look at how dark this juice is. It's almost like a liquid chocolate bar. Just bite into it. All right, next up, we're going to the house of Sarah Baker. This is Jungle Jezebel. Yes, Jungle Jezebel is pretty out there fragrance. Really lots of civet. Most likely it's civetone or some kind of a synthetic civet or civet accord, probably. But bubblegum, bananas, and fruits and flowers. It's inspired by 80s ladies' powerhouse fragrances, but going down the fruity category of ladies' fragrances. It's pretty filthy. The civety touches in the base is quite poopy. It's almost like you've got, like the Beauty and the Beast. You've got this kind of like beauty kind of, more like a girly kind of bananas and bubblegum and fruits. With, on the other side, it's the Beast. You know, you've got this kind of like very hairy, smelly beast that's lingering. You know, kind of like the Little Red Riding Hood with the big bad wolf. So that is Jungle Jezebel. And then we've got Riders. This is the horse one. I have a friend that loves this fragrance. I can't connect with it. I don't know what it is. This used to be called Bascule. It's quite green to me. I think there's hay. It's smelling actually nice, but it's... What do you guys think of Riders? It's like a horse, stable. You know, I don't hang around horse stables much, but you know, all the like the straw or the hay that's around on the ground, and the smell of the horses, how animalic they are. The leather that's on top of the horses. That's basically what this smells like. There is some greenness thrown in as well. It's smelling better to me, but I think I don't think I could wear it. Riders, let me know your thoughts on that one. Then we've got a fragrance by the house of Serge Lutens. It's Musc's Kubla Khan. So Musc's Kubla Khan, guys, is no longer in the black bottle. I've been mentioning it every time I speak. I'm going back to Europe in April, and I'll find out what's going on with these fragrances. But I was told in October that they have moved into the bell jars, but I'll see if there's any available out there. But Musc's Kubla Khan, to me, is a fragrance I first wore in the 50 ml bottle in the original formulation, and I really loved it. Then it became a bit animalic. Now, at certain times, I love it, and certain times it becomes just way too much. It's quite musky and also sweaty at the same time. So you've got a little bit of a leathery touch in there. it's quite raw. It's a bit like unwashed smelling while you're smelling like deer musk. Great name for it too, Musk's Kubla Khan. It's a great fragrance created by Christopher Sheldrake. Definitely one of my favorites, but I have a love-hate relationship with it. It's more love than hate. But for me, it becomes so dirty sometimes, and I just can't tolerate it. But other times, it's very sexy. Chemistry thing for sure. So that's Musk's Kubla Khan. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Next, we're going to the house of Strangelove with Dead of Night. So we have The Night by Frederic Malle, and we've got Dead of Night by Strangelove. So Dead of Night is a dark, smoky, animalic oud. But it's probably one of the big sellers for this house because it is quite gorgeous. It reminds me of The Night by Frederic Malle, but there's something floral happening in this. Not like rose that's in The Night. It's more like a white flower thing, which adds a slight soapy layer. It's gorgeous. But I think it's not as beastly as The Night. In like the way the Frederic Malle fragrances spray. I mean, I don't know, something to do with the spray or the liquid or the juice in there is super potent. Here, because it didn't spray like that, I mean, the fragrance itself smells like it's strong, but the sprayer I think is not as strong. But to me, this Dead of Night hasn't smelled as good as it's smelling today. It's been a while since I've smelled it, by the way. What is the flower? What are the flowers in here? There's something floral happening against the oud that is in here that reminds me of The Night. But again, The Night was rose. This is some white flowers. Quite gorgeous. Let me know if you're familiar with Dead of Night. And up next, we've got a fragrance from the house of Tower Perfumes. It's Lone Star Memories. For the longest time, this was very easy to wear, but within the last 2-3 years, it's gotten so animalic on me, and it's not as easy to wear anymore. Has that happened to you guys? A fragrance has gotten animalic, more animalic. It could be, like I said, a chemistry thing, but this leather is so dirty. Wow. Imagine dirty leather, animalic leather with the Tower Oud, the Tower Perfumes DNA. That's what this smells like. It's quite amazing, actually. Even though I said it's quite animalic, I think it still smells great. I love the smell. But it has gotten a lot more animalic. I don't think it's a formulation thing. I don't think that he's changed the formula. I think it's a chemistry thing. Quite good, though. I love Tower Perfumes. I got to get back into buying some of their most recent launches, but L'air du Desert Marocain is a masterpiece, I think. But next, we're going to the house of Tiziana Terenzi. It's Temple. Whew. This is dirty oud with clean, soapy, green lily of the valley. Is that an idea you like? This dries down to the dirty oud, but there's a lot of lily of the valley in it, which to me is a clean, soapy, green floral note. But this on skin, whew, quite fecal and dirty. But right now, it's not, the oud, the dirtiness of the oud is not showing its face. So right now we're just experiencing the the Lily of the Valley. Anyway, that's Temple from Tiziana Terenzi. Let me know if you're a fan. It's not easy to wear. I mean, I love Lily of the Valley, but the oud is just way too overpowering. Next, we're going to the house of Visitor. It's Cabaret Nocturne. A very daring fragrance by Cécile Zarokian. Super daring. But it's also a lot of white flowers here. I think it's tuberose. Spicy, peppery, vintage style tuberose. Very sweaty and animalic. Yeah. This reminds me of the tuberose in something like Fracas. Very vintage tuberose. Yeah. There's a muskiness in there that's a bit off-putting. And this is something that I've not smelled Cécile Zarokian do, but I guess if you give her a brief, she'll, put something together. But yeah, this one's very challenging for me. But it smells very, very vintage, very, very tuberose forward. It's very peppery and musky, overdosed with a lot of tuberose and pepper. Like, the pepper spice has gotten really strong in this. That is Visitor Cabaret Nocturne. Okay. Next up, we've got Kouros by YSL. Yes, we do have Kouros by YSL. At one time, mainstream fragrances were animalic. We are all animals. I think this Kouros is a masterpiece. I love it more than I love Antaeus. Sure, it doesn't smell like it once did. Well, it does smell like it once did, but it's just neutered, thinned out. But for me, when I smell Antaeus, I always feel like there's something wrong with the leather in it or the way they've reformulated it. Something's off. Here, it smells like Kouros, just much thinner. I have a flanker of Kouros called Eau d'été. To me, it's been discontinued for probably 20 years, and to me, the current Kouros is almost as thin as how Kouros Eau d'été smells, because it's a summer version. And this has gotten that light, this reformulation. But I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's one of the best fragrances ever created. More than Antaeus. I know there's fans of Antaeus, but I'm in the Kouros party, not the Antaeus party. But I think both bottles were, I love that they're visually stunning bottles, I think. But with what Chanel has done to Antaeus and what YSL has done to Kouros, I prefer Kouros much more than Antaeus. All right, next, go into the house of Xerjoff or Chemi. Chemi is the name. It used to be a brand called Chemi. It was a subline of Xerjoff. They still sell this, but now it's re-released as Xerjoff Chemi. This is Chemi, but under the Xerjoff umbrella. This is, wow. Gourmand and Animalics. It's a bit boozy. Well, it's gotten smoother, I think. But it's like the oud in Strangelove's Dead of Night. It's like the oud in The Night. Super poopy. But there's a boozy liqueur-like vibe in here. Caramel, vanilla. I mean, if you strip away some of the very animalic oud, this would be so delicious. But there's a lot of that oud, and I feel like it doesn't contrast very pleasantly. It's smelling much better today. I mean, I've had a challenging time with this, but it's smelling much better today. Chemi. How is the new version in the news? I mean, the Xerjoff bottles. Let me know if you guys know. Is it as animalic as this version? Because that is pretty animalic. And then we've got this. I've discovered this somewhere along the way. It's more of a booster. It's by Exponential, called Animalic Boost. Are you guys familiar with this? So just like the Essence from Francesca Bianchi, this is like an animalic booster. So, and I'm not too familiar with it. Let me tell you my thoughts. It's almost like synthetic molecules, like molecular notes with animalic musk. So there's a clean white musk, cotton musk, almost like ambroxan, like a not eccentric, but ISOE super side. And on the other side, there's something dirty, musky as well. I quite like that, actually. I think you can wear it on its own. It's kind of minimalistic and molecular and simplistic, and it gets animalic and musky. It's quite nice. Anybody familiar with this? All right, 2 fragrances left, and we're going to the house of zoologist perfumes. First is Musk Deer. I had to feature this here because it is about the musk. I don't have civet and I don't have hyrax, so I can't feature those here, but I can talk about Musk Deer, inspired by the animal that they used to make the musk from, right there. But with the case of zoologist, it's not using the animalic product. It's a synthetic recreation. This also has musks, synthetic musks, to create that experience, but it also has ambrette. I think it has the ambrette note in here. So it's very powdery. It's animalic and musky. Slightly fruity too. And spicy. I like it. It's not one of my all-time favorites from the house, but I like the way it's smelling. Taking an inspiration from the animal that they used to use to create the musk and making something that smells like it is an awesome thing, I think, without using the actual animal. All right, and the last fragrance from the house of zoologist perfumes, and the last fragrance in the video, is Sacred Scarab. This is a great fragrance, but quite challenging. There's a lot going on with it. It's a bit boozy, it's a bit fruity, lots of amber and resins, spices, and eventually it gets daring and daring as it's settling. Quite spicy. It definitely has fruits in there as well. I wish I had hyrax to talk to you guys about. I wish I had civet, which I don't have. Do they even make those fragrances from Zoologist? And I wish I had the original bat, which is not animalic to me. I don't have it. But I'm happy to talk to you guys about these 2 Zoologist perfumes. And I can't leave off this brand because in the end, they are inspired by animals. Anyway, Musk Deer and Sacred Scarab, rounding off the list of 50 animalic fragrances. So let me know your thoughts on these fragrances. Let me know what you would add to the list. I'm trying to find and discover animalic fragrances that I enjoy wearing. I wish I had a bottle of the leather oud from Dior that's been discontinued. That was one of my first Animalic fragrances. Sadly, it's discontinued. Plus, I don't have a bottle. But let me know if you guys recommend anything, knowing what I mentioned I like here, that I would like that I should check out. But let me know what your thoughts are on these fragrances. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Are you just starting out with Animalic fragrances? What have you discovered? What can you tolerate? What you can't tolerate? Do let me know. Do add the comments below. And thanks so much for watching today's video. I should let you guys know, next week is going to be a pretty slow week for me, as in slow in airing videos. There's going to be an announcement on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. I'm just giving you guys a heads up. A big project that I've been working on is finally going to get the announcement next week. So I might not be airing videos too much next week, but maybe I will, who knows. But stay tuned for things to get back on track later in the week and onto the following week. But I appreciate you tuning in today. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Click that bell icon. Subscribe to my shorts channel as well. I have it linked in the info box. Trying to get to the 1,000 subscribers mark, then I'll start posting videos there, shorts videos. And give a thumbs up for this video. It'll help with the algorithm. See you guys later. Bye-bye.